Okay, here's 3 of my audience members via FaceTime and 3 more in person. All right. Hi. The Texas Wildlife Association does a lot to promote the betterment of the human condition through conservation of wildlife, particularly of hunted game. I'm going to talk to you about another organization that promotes the betterment of the human condition through coastal conservation. My organization is called the Coastal Conservation Association, but more commonly known as the CCA. The CCA is a nonprofit marine conservation organization. It was started in 1977 after overfishing became a big problem in the Gulf Coast region when redfish and speckled trout populations decreased dramatically. The CCA was started by 14 concerned fishermen who wanted to start a conservation association to help improve the populations of fish along the Texas Gulf Coast. The CCA started in Texas, but is now nationwide and is in many states such as Florida, Maine, and California. A neat thing about the CCA is that each chapter operates independently, which means that any money that's raised by the CCA in Texas, all the money that's raised by them in Texas is spent specifically to improve Texas conservation in the Gulf Coast. The CCA is one of the largest organizations of its kind. The CCA is over 40 years old and has grown tremendously since its first charter. It was founded in 1977 in Texas, and in 1985 it spanned all across the Gulf Coast region, ranging from Texas all the way to Florida. By the mid-1990s, the CCA expanded up the Mid-Atlantic region and all the way into New England. So that area includes states like the Carolinas and Maine. Later in the 2000s, the CCA expanded to Washington and Oregon, with its latest charter being in California in 2015. All of these chapters of the CCA promote the betterment of the human condition through coastal conservation projects. But in my presentation, I'm going to tell you specifically about what the CCA does for the betterment of Texas. According to CCA.org, the CCA sponsors various projects such as scientific studies, scholarships, artificial reefs, hatcheries, contaminant studies, hydrology studies, and freshwater inflows. According to the Corpus Christi Caller-Times, the CCA has done a lot in keeping the Cedar Bayou Pass dredged and flowing. The Cedar Bayou Pass is a pass of water that's located in between San Jose Island and the Matagorda Bay. It was initially dredged in 2014. This project was financed by fundraisers done by the CCA. Immediately after the dredging of this pass, there was tremendous improvements in the redfish populations in the Gulf Coast area. And many redfish eggs have been seen in this pass. It's a very popular place for the redfish to lay their eggs. Unfortunately, after the devastation of Hurricane Harvey and the storm surge that came with it, this pass was practically filled in with sand and is pretty much not running currently. So the CCA is in the progress of raising money to redredge this pass in order to once again improve the ecosystem in the Gulf Coast, off the Texas coast. This is just one of the many projects that the CCA has done specifically in the recovery of the Gulf Coast area from Hurricane Harvey. The CCA has done countless projects for this area. the CCA is one of the biggest coastal conservation organizations, but there are many other conservation organizations in Texas that promote wildlife conservation. So the next speaker will talk to you more about the Texas Conservation Alliance.